Okay, hi everyone. Welcome back to our sessions, which is the startup training sessions with Mickey. And today we'll be talking about the more details about how to craft a perfect pitch deck. So before we get started, thank you for joining me. This is in our session 2. We'll spend some minutes waiting for people to get online, and then we'll also get started with reviewing what we have learned so far in the previous chapters. So to run through what we have talked about. So you're here probably because you're curious about starting up, about how to start a pitch. Basically, when we are talking about a pitch, it's you have to do it because of 2 reasons. The first reason is, sadly, money. So when you are a startup, usually if you choose to start your company, a lot of times you don't have enough resources. And going on to Shark Tank, the TV reality show, or finding investors, venture capitalists, or investment banks, those kind of institutions, the tango, the dance, the protocol, what's normal for them is to ask you to pitch. So if you are a startup founder and you're looking for investment and you don't have the correct tools and the equipment as well as the know-how on how to do a good pitch, then you will be at a disadvantage when you are working in the startup world. So in this, we'll talk about pitching. That's the first reason. Investment. When we're getting money from someone, when we're asking people to invest in our business, in our startup, we will need to learn how to do a pitch. The second reason why we want to do this is, in other places in real life, we have to present our ideas not only to investors. We've got to, if we go to different competitions, startup competition, if we are meeting potential clients, if we are meeting our strategic partners or even our customers, then we need to quickly elaborate what the service is about, especially in this startup world where everybody is trying to innovate, to disrupt, to do something more different, more novel, brand new. So because of that reason, pitching is going to be one of the very needed skill in today's startup world. And that is the reason why. So we'll talk in this session, we talk about a pitch deck. So the pitch is usually comprises of 2 things. The first is the presenter. The presenter has to know how to tell his story, and that is a soft part. The technical part is actually how to draft, to draw, to write a presentation, usually a PowerPoint presentation that is called a pitch deck. Deck here, like a deck of cards. It's a series of different slides that can be the tool for you to present. So remember, the slides are going to be about 15 slides, 10 to 20 slides, and it's designed to give a short summary of your company. It's used for different purposes, so you can have multiple versions of your slides, and you probably will need a demo day presentation, and you have to deliver it. Also, we'll talk about the elevator pitch later on in the session, which is a complete different idea. Now, wrapping up from what we talked about last time, if you are a startup founder and you're trying to get investment, you need to understand how investments work. So this is just a quick model for you to understand that if you want to start your business, this is what you're looking for when you're looking for money. So first thing is first. In the last sessions, we talked about bootstrapping. Bootstrapping means you have to self-fund. It's not mandatory that you self-fund, but honestly, it's more popular. The reason why it's more common to self-fund is firstly because in the beginning, you don't have enough resources. You don't, if you are, by self-funding, it might be even family and friends. So if you have, your family, your parents are helping you out, if you have a foundation, a good financial foundation, then you can bootstrap your company. Why ask for investment? Well, in those cases, you don't even need to ask for investment. If your dad is funding you, then probably he is your main investor. However, a lot of companies and startups still choose to get investment. The reason is because they can. With more money, you can move faster in the business, and with the validation that somebody is willing to invest in you, especially if that is a big foundation, then it can show other people the credibility. So a lot of times people go on Shark Tanks, and my friends go on it a lot. And most of the time they go there for exposure. It's not because their company cannot function without that investment. It's mostly because it's good for marketing. If they can get validation, sometimes they get advices from the sharks, and they can do networking. So it's not always about the money. But remember, you should bootstrap first. Again, are there any companies that can, instead of not bootstrapping, the reason is if you don't want to, if you don't want to bootstrap, you can ask for investment, yes. But usually the funds and the people with money will be hesitating to give you money because they see that you haven't put in your own. If you're not putting in your own, it means that you're not that confident about the success of your company. And why should they believe you when you tell them that that company is your, heart and soul, and you will work the hardest to make it successful? It doesn't work like that. So bootstrapping is the first phase. After bootstrapping, we'll go into seeding phase. The seeding phase, like the name seed, is planting seed, which is very small amount of capital. Usually in the US, that would be about 500,000 US dollars to 2 million investment. In Vietnam, that amount of money can, give a lot of support, but in US, that amount is not that big for a startup to work. And usually what we want to have at this stage is we want angel investors to invest. The reason is usually because angel investors are a little bit nicer when it comes to all their demands, and they invest individually, they help out, they do networking, mentoring, and things like that. Whereas if we ask from VC, which is venture capitalists, a lot of times you are selling a company short because they will get a large amount of the shares while they only contribute less than $2 million. So usually people wait until round A. Round A is basically the first round of funding. So at each of these rounds, usually you will be asked to do a pitch, and your pitch has to be top notch. It has to get better and better every time. And you can get you can get unlimited amounts of rounds of funding. But remember, the share of the company is limited, and usually founders, they want to keep a majority of shares for themselves so that at the end of the last round, you want to do IPO. And what is IPO? Can somebody else tell me what IPO is in the comment section, please? Ooh. Hello. Oh, hello. Hello. We've got some people here. Good to see you. So when we are talking about IPO, it means that a company can do its public offering. IPO is an initial that stands for initial public offering, which means that this is the first time the company is debuting in front of the public. They will go to, for example, NASDAQ or the Dow Jones, for example. And in Vietnamese case, we have the HOSE, the Ho Chi Minh City Security Exchange Market. And basically, we will go to some security market, the stock market. And that is the first time our company comes out and is asking the public, not VC, not angels, for investment. We will sell our stock, and that is when we call it a payday. That is when the investors, they can, maybe they have been working hard in this company for 1 year, maybe even 5 or 10 years, just so that when the company is IPOing, then they can sell the majority of their stock at a big amount of money. So Facebook did the same thing. When Facebook went IPO, it was, I remember, that was quite some years ago. It was at least 10 years ago, I believe. And when Facebook went IPO, we were all watching what's going to happen. And Mark Zuckerberg had a chance to cash out. He had the chance to sell all of his shares of the company that he built, the ones that he was holding, so that he can get a payout, which means that you get rewarded at the end. But he had a choice of, keeping some of the stock or sell all of it. Well, of course, he kept some of the stock. The same thing go with Tesla, with Elon Musk, with Bill Gates, with Steve Jobs, everybody. They get cash out, but usually they keep a certain amount of shares. But all of the people, as I mentioned above, they have another option, which is they can give up the company because now it's a public company, which means that it will be run by a board of directors. It has too many shareholders, and it has to decide whether to keep the CEO or not. Before IPO, that company is your company. So if your share is large enough, you can still appoint yourself as CEO. In Vietnam, it's very funny. In Vietnam, I have seen when I first came back here, it was quite interesting that the chairman of the board, so the chairman, the president of the company, and the CEO is one person. If you're studying in the US, if you're learning economics or corporate finance, you probably have heard that it's not that common that you have the chairman of the board and the CEO to be the same person. The reason is because the governance, the way the companies in abroad in other countries are run differently, because the board of directors, the shareholders, they hold the true power of who to assign as CEO. And to avoid the conflict of interest that the president and the CEO is the same person, they try to separate the roles. So the president is the person who kind of represents the well-being of all shareholders, whereas the CEO, he is usually for hire. He's just an employee. The CEO is very powerful, but he is hired to run the company. So in this case, in Vietnam, on the other hand, the owner of the company and the CEO is usually one person, which I found very strange. Now I'm more used to it. But so what it means is, for big companies like Facebook or Snapchat or Apple, at that time, before Steve Jobs passed away, Microsoft, it was very uncommon that after IPO, the CEO remains the same as the founder. But these big companies, they kept that tradition. So what happens when you are first trying to get a meeting in those things? It's not that you just go and meet them and then suddenly they give you money. It doesn't work like that. So when you get a meeting, you have to send them a very short pitch deck. It has to be super short because you also want to keep confidentiality. You don't want them to know everything. You want to keep them curious so that they will give you a meeting. It could be a one-liner pitch, so you have to explain to them in the shortest, one line, what you do and why you're asking for money. And then you get that meeting. After getting that meeting, you will have your pitch deck, the opportunity for you to show off 15 slides of what your company is about and asking for money. Lastly, after that, of course, they don't give you money right away. Not everything works like on reality TV show like Shark Tank. And at that time, you will get follow-up meetings. They will ask you for more documents, for more proof and things like that, and yada, yada. So with that, today we will talk about what happens next. So we have talked about, yes, hello everyone. Nice to see you. Well, for Maria, actually, that is not true. The CEO itself is usually called the legal representative. The legal representative in the registration of law of Vietnam could be the CEO or the chairman, or both the CEO come chairman of the board. So the president is the person who is representing the shareholders' interest. So for companies such as joint stock companies, you will see a lot of chairmen of the board being the ones having the majority of shareholders, because you need more than 3 shareholders to be registered as a joint stock company. And then if you have limited liability, also usually the legal representative could be the CEO or the chairman, or a person who holds both of those positions. Usually just in Vietnam, we don't call them CEO. Usually we call them GM, so general directors, general managers, and things like that. So with that, let's go back to pitching. So when we are pitching to investors, this is the things that you have to get started. This is our main points in session 2. In session 3, we'll talk about each slides and examples more. So when you are pitching to investors, remember one thing: they are very, very busy people. Of course, investors, sometimes you can find that they are very arrogant, and you have to forgive them because they are very busy. The reason is, if you are going to meet them to ask for money, this is what I really also want to advise people, that the mentalities, the mistakes that I see a lot of startup founders, they make Okay, I'm so sorry. I hope I'm on again. Can somebody at the support tell me if I'm live again? I think so. Sorry about that. A little bit of technical issues with the internet. I'm back. So here we are talking about the common mistakes that startup founders they make when they are thinking about investors that I find particularly in Vietnam. So the first thing I want to say is the key to a good pitch is to understand your position. It's the same way when you're asking for a job. It doesn't mean that you have to do something shameful. It doesn't mean that you are, that you're doing something wrong. But please remember that when you are asking for investment, you are asking. Think about when you are asking your parents for money. You have to think about the reason. You have to think about why. You have to think about whether they will give you or not. You have to think about the incentive, why they should give you the money. So it doesn't mean that you have to be ashamed of asking for money, because actually it's a win-win situation where if the investors find you interesting, they will give you the money. And that's a great thing. But at the same time, excuse me. Let's see. At the same time, if they are not interested in your company, then they will reject you. So which result would you rather have? In my opinion, you would want to be invested in. So remember that we want people to give people a reason why they should invest in you. And that has to start with the fact that you are asking, and you have to ask the right way. You have to strategize. You have to become prepared. So a lot of people find in Vietnam, I found that when they go into these investment pitching decks, they have these problems. Problem number one, you are not confident. So first, you have to be confident in your business. If you're not confident in what you are trying to sell, your company, the vision, the profitability, then that would be a problem. Nobody will believe in you unless you believe in yourself. If you want them to believe in you 10%, you've got to give it 100%, 200%. Number two, come prepared. Don't blame it on, I have bad presentation skill. I'm not prepared. I didn't bring my pitch deck. I didn't bring our data. It's not an excuse. You're going asking for money. And if you're sloppy, then people will not give you a chance. Nobody, like the example I said, your parents also need to have assurance when they give you money. Then, a complete stranger will have even, more demands for assurance. Thirdly, confidence and preparation. Thirdly, it's all about the right attitude. So a lot of people I see, they're investing in companies where they feel like this founder understand what it means to ask for money. So you don't want to meet someone who gets your money and doesn't understand the contract between the VC venture capital and the startup founder. You have to report, of course you do, because you're using their money. You have to explain every single spending expense. Sure, you have to do that. You have to promise and keep your promise in regards to the KPIs. Of course, you have to do that. When you are taking people's money, you have the obligation to do as in the contract. You cannot do as much, as you please. And sometimes, money is the king. Cash is king. If they have the majority of the shares and they ask you to pivot, they ask you to make changes to your investment and to all of those things, you should do that. So a lot of people, when they take the money, they don't want to do the rest of the obligations, and that is when things go wrong. So now we'll talk about pitching to investors, the pitch itself. So when you're pitching to investors, remember these kind of things. First, you have to grab their attention in the first 30 seconds. If not, you will risk losing them for the entire pitch. Usually the pitch should be about, less than 20 minutes would be a common strategy. I remembered in one of our pitch sessions when we did training with at the time the director CTO of Dell, then we were discussing this. The perfect pitch usually would be about 18 to 22 minutes. That would be a good pitch. However, in the first 30 seconds, if they are not interesting enough, and nowadays we humans, we watch social media, we play TikTok, and we only have a attention span of a goldfish, usually 6 seconds, 15 seconds. And even if it's for work, if you fail to grab their attention in 30 seconds, then you will lose them in the entire pitch. The best way to avoid this is to quickly get the problem that you are solving. Quickly show the solution. Show me the money. People really want to show, what exactly do you do and why exactly should they care? Secondly, do your homework on your audience and investors. I've had, some of the greatest companies that I know, one of the greatest startups that I really, really like. I really like them, and I still keep contact with the founders until today. And then we had a chance to work together, and my company invested in their startup. But it was very funny because they made that fundamental mistake. They were very young men. They were only born in, I think, maybe 92, 93 at that time. And they went to a pitch competition that I was a judge. But at the same time, when they came there, they didn't expect they had to pitch. They didn't check competition. They didn't know who was the one judging the pitch, yada, yada, yada. And they thought it was just good exposure. They thought that it's good exercise. It's good to, expose yourself and go to these places and check it out. So don't have that mentality. I know that we end up, being very close and we end up working together, but that usually you're not that lucky. Usually if you go there and people can read that you are not prepared, then that is a problem. So why do we have to investigate our investors or audience? Because the more you are at relating your company to what they do or care about, the more likely you can spark their interest. The reason why I was interested in them is because the funny thing is, for example, if you look at Shark Tank, for example, so if of all the sharks, you've got some sharks like Sharks Hung, I think, Sharks Fu, and Shark Bing. I remember those three guys. I think that's their names. I know Shark Bing personally, but for example, Anh Bing is working in tech. His company Next Tech has been working, it was a startup. They were very good at calling funding, and they were great at having a large portfolio of different kind of IT related products. They have a great portfolio. So they have the education business with Techie. They have the payment gateway, one of the first payment gateway, if I'm not mistaken, in Vietnam, which was very impressive. And they have, I think it was Ngân Lượng, yes, and they have a bunch of other products that they were developing. So he actually has a lot of experience when it comes to starting up in the Silicon Valley way, making an app, making solution, the technology solution, and disrupting the business, blah, 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 blah. So those kind of things, he will have a lot of interest when you are a tech company asking, going on Shark Tank, you will have the advantage that at least he's interested in you. But you will also have a problem that you will have to prove to him a lot of things that he has gotten, decades of experience, whereas you might not. So those kind of things is something you have to watch for. But instead, if you have, for example, Shark Fu, if I'm not mistaken, he is a chairman of Sun House, if I'm not mistaken. And because of that reason, Sun House, as you know, is a great brand that came up from something very simple. These electronics that Sun House is making is super simple. But the difficult part of their business model is distribution. It's the economy of scale. It's making products that every household needs, such as, a kettle or a stove, and these people are awesome at, inventory, stock, warehousing, assembly, importing parts, things like that. So production companies, the companies that have economy of scales, will have to be, will be more relatable to shark Fu, but at the same time, they will also be challenged by him more. So if you understand your investors, you will know that these investors, what kind of background they have, how to impress them, what kind of questions they will throw at you, and how to spark their interest. But if you don't understand that, that would be a big problem. So at that time, I was working in tech. We were working actually in all sorts of tech. Our company at that time also had investment in almost every part of the tech world, from software, hardware, blockchain, CRM, coding, software management, internet protocols, things like that. So when this tech company came to our to the pitch that I was the judge, actually I asked them a lot of questions that was related to tech. So from where their data servers is located, what is the security system, and how much traction, how much users, what is the capacity of their infrastructure, those kind of things. And they could impress me really well with their answers, because they brought both the CEO and the CTO to the pitch. So that is something I really want to talk about. Please do your homework on your investors. What kind of companies they fund. So it's very difficult for Shark Fu, for example, to fund a company that is related to IT, because if it's that kind of IT that his company can use, I think that he would be interested. But you can see that he's more interested in a lot of companies in terms of production, sales, distribution, things like that. So next time you watch Shark Tank or rewatch it, please pay attention to the companies that those sharks are talking about. Are they, are they almighty? Are they investing in all of the industries, or do they have their favorites? Start reading that instead of just a drama between the sharks. So the thirdly is understand one size does not fit all. That is related to do your homework on the investors. Some companies, they have a strategy to find companies in tech. Some other companies really want to find startups with women entrepreneurs, because they want to support women entrepreneurs. That is just going to be the different strategies and the diversity of the pool of investors. So if you don't get selected, don't take it personally. Too many startups get out of the pitching room and they feel it's like going to university exam, and then you feel like you didn't do well. It doesn't work like that. The business world, the pitching world doesn't work like that. It's like dating. Don't take it personally that I don't like you. Somebody else will. So one size does not fit all. Every company has a different strategy. And if you understand the right kind of investor, the right kind of company that would likely invest in you, then you will have more chance of getting invested and getting support. So based on your market and business model and technology, you may choose to introduce a product before you introduce to the market. Or the other way around, you will need to gauge your approach based on your audience and the novelty of the technology. The underlying rule is that the presentation should flow smoothly while talking audience to the story, yada, yada. Fourthly, ensure that every slide has a purpose. So a lot of times when you are a presenter, if you are a person who really doesn't want to miss out, you will probably overkill. And I used to make that mistake when I first started off. So I usually like to give people the best kind of information, the most detailed information as possible. And a lot of times people are not interested in those information at that point. It could be done later by Q&A, by follow-up and things like that. But make sure that every slide has a purpose. That's why we want to limit the slides to be as short as possible. So for each slide, ask yourself, what is the takeaway for the audience from this slide? What can the audience get? What do they understand? What do they see? What is the right way? Does the content communicate the message that I want to send? If you can clearly explain that, then modify or just kill the slide. Also understand that less is more. No investor wants or will read a wall of text on the slides. I'm sure you guys are now also bored to death with me because I didn't pay a lot of attention to designing the slides, so it's just a lot of text. But bear with me. So next one is sell the investor on your business. Remember, you are there to sell. Of course, it's not something shameful to ask for investment, but also remember, you're a salesman. You're there to sell. You have to sell a vision, sell a company, and you're trying to get them to buy the shares of your company by investment. The pitch deck is the most important sales pitch that you need to make. And no matter what, you have to remember it's always going to be about the sale. Don't just make the information, you need to convince the investor, okay? And that is super important. Also, you need to go dating a lot, Stating a fact is not giving other people a reason why they should accept you. Like in dating, saying, I have high income, then, it's just like, yeah, so what? It doesn't prove anything. But if you say that you have a very stable income and you are enjoying a very good life and you want to share that good life with someone else, then they would be like, oh, okay, that sounds very nice. So it's the same thing. If you say that, we have really high profitability, then people will be like, okay. But if you tell them we have a high profitability and the investment ask for us is, only equal to, a small amount that usually you would spend on this kind of service in your own company. Now with the same expense, you can get profitability from our company. You can have a bigger portfolio of investment and you can use our product to replace the expense that you are already using, maybe like a CRM software. Then if you say that, the investors then they will start considering, oh, what's in it for me? Oh, I see why it is considerable that we should think about investing in that company. So remember, it's a sales pitch. Make it about sales. Then again, like I said, stress the ROI. For an investor to invest in your business, you have to make it super clear how they will generate returns on their investment, not how great you think a product is. This is another mistake of pitching. A lot of people fall in love with their product. The product is so beautiful that, they think that everybody will want it. Yes, people might want it, but at what price? Is it going to give you a return on the investment? There are a lot of great products you want in this life, but if they're not profitable. So you have to think about the profit and then you can talk about the product. It doesn't mean that the product is not important. The product is definitely important, but it just means that a good product doesn't guarantee the return on the investment. And like the word investment implies, people are giving you money so that they can get the return. So make sure you mention that. You have a great opportunity for the investor if she and he believes that they will make a significant returns on their investment. Otherwise, why would you expect someone to invest? A savvy investor will always be focused on how much funding you need to raise to be able to be successful, how many different funding rounds you should expect over the life of your company, and how much dilution their investment will be subjected to. So, moving on, I'm just checking your comments. If you have any questions, I know that these slides actually have a lot of text and they have a lot of jargons, which means that technical terms. We talk about, in ROI, investment portfolio, and things like that. So if you're unfamiliar with this language, that's okay. That's why we are here. That's why we want to make this more popular, more commonplace for people who are interested in starting their business in startups, want to learn. But if you're unfamiliar, just drop a message by comment in the video, in the live video. Please help share and like the US Embassy's video so that we can come back to you and answer them. Anyways, keep on going, rolling on. Then convey adaptability. This is also something that I really want to stress. Investors are looking for entrepreneurs who are willing to pivot as time goes on. This is also very painful. And I know that sometimes when you are a startup founder and you love your product and you have faith in it, yeah, that's what we are looking for. If you don't have faith in your products, then nobody wants to invest in you. But flexibility, when we can make adjustment to that product, we can make the product greater, we can make it better, we can make it more adaptable. And that's why you're here. You are a startup. You are basically a baby in the world of business. your product might be great, but it might not be ready. Maybe it will take about 3 more years until it will be ready. What are we going to do in these 3 years? Are you willing to change? Investors might not have such a great idea as you have. And maybe one day you will come back and laugh in our faces like, oh, I'm the new Facebook, haha. But when you're asking for investment, you are a baby, which means that your experience level with the market, with other aspects of business is quite minimum. And because of that reason, sometimes the investors will ask you to pivot, to change, to adapt, to improve your product or business model or direction or strategy. So convey that you are ready to make necessary changes down the road if needed. Because a lot of people, they get super defensive and they're like, oh, you don't know anything about, this product or this business. If you speak like that, honestly, investors will feel quite offended because they are busy people. They gave you the time. And if you don't want to take in the constructive criticism in your business later on, then there's no reason for them to cooperate with you. And if you know that, and I hate, and I have to say it with utmost abhorration, that I hate it when people say, oh, we are perfect, we just need money. Business doesn't work like that. If you are perfect, if everything you did was right, then you wouldn't need money because you would have already made money. The reason why you need money is not really about the money. It's about making your success faster, accelerate the growth. It's about giving you more tools and equipments to be better. Money is never a problem. Money is a solution. Money is a solution to things you want to do. It's not the reason why you're not successful as a startup. And because of that reason, don't ever think that you are the greatest. You just lack money. It doesn't work like that. So remember, yes, adaptability. You are there and you're asking an investor. The investor is investing not only money, and remember that, they are investing time for you. They're investing their human resource to support you, their network, their mentorship. And if you're just there for money, then it's just like a one-night stand. And most people will not be willing to go into that kind of relationship because they can give the same amount of money to another startup investor that is more prepared, that is more grateful, that is more adaptive than you are. And lastly, don't give them a reason to not invest. Investors are looking for a reason to say yes. Remember that when you are coming there, they're just bored, but they are trying to find the next big thing. They are bored because out of 10 people, 9 people came in with a bad mindset. So you should be the one that gives them the reason to say yes, or else why would they be there? So please give them a reason to say yes, to invest. Do not give them the reason to not invest. If there is anything in your message or slides that give them a pause, then they may pass. At the end of the day, it's smarter and safer to pass on an investment. So please don't give them a reason. They just need a yes. Don't miss it as one-time interaction. Again, there's no one-night stand in this. It's gonna be a lot of flirting, a lot of courtship, and you need to convince the people that you are worthy. So after the presentation, if you're not funded, it's okay. Take the opportunity. You can still say, if available, and you can say, I want to hear your feedback. What can I do better? What do you think about my business? People love to feel important. And I say that on my behalf as well. It's a very human thing that people want to feel important. So never ever think that if you ask for their feedback, they will ignore you. They won't. If you're not if you're not acting like a jerk, then they will give you feedback. So defensive people will never get that feedback. But if you are truly, coming from a good place, then they will give you a feedback because they also want to share the experience. I want to share my experience. That's why I'm here. And because of that reason, people will always give you a feedback. I promise you that. And after you give a feedback, if you can change, that is your free advice. Because remember, if they invested in you, they will also give you the mentorship. You can still ask for mentorship without the investment. Maybe at that time, they have thought that maybe the return on investment is not high enough, but it doesn't mean that they will not invest in you the attention and the time if you have the right attitude. So find out what you could have done differently and what they would want to see you improve on if you were going to pitch them again in the future. Don't ever look at an investor pitch as one-time interaction with no second chance. In some cases, companies have pitched to the same investor several times before they get the funding. So those are my really, how do I say it? Those are something that I've always wanted that the startup founders have, because it's very sad, you waste, 5 hours of your day, sitting in a room listening to pitches. But, out of 10 people, 9 people could have done better, could have had a great investment, but lost a chance because of some reason mentioned above. So please don't make those mistakes. So let's move on. Still talking about the don'ts. Don't do these. First, what you should do is tell a story that flows. A lot of people think that, the slides are important. Yes, they are. But remember, yesterday Apple just released the Apple 13. I keep talking about the keynote speech by Apple because that is ultimately a pitch deck. So the story, it's not really about the slides behind you. Nobody is caring about the slides. They're caring about your story and you as a storyteller. So your story has to flow. It has to be interesting. It has to grasp their attention. The slide is just a prop. It's just a decorative item behind you to make people understand your story better visually. So putting facts on a slide is important, but it will not get your message across, as well as having slides that consecutively build on the next. They should be consistent. The flow has to be beautiful, and it has to help you as a storyteller. People like stories. They are good stories. Secondly, pitch by analogy. You need to give people examples because, like I said, a lot of times you will be from technical department and you're pitching to somebody who is in retail and they wouldn't understand the story. They wouldn't understand the jargon. You have to analyze and give analogy, give examples, comparison. Don't be afraid to compare yourself to other similar companies. That's normal. 3, let the best presenter present. Remember that, this is not about the ego. This is about the money. Who can bring in home more money for the team? So there's no hard rule that as a CEO, you have to be the pitch. Maybe you are the alpha founder. You feel like you are the leader of the team, but your presentation sucks. You intimidate other people. You're too arrogant. You don't speak well. So step back. Leadership is about using the best resources, not, being in the spotlight. If you feel like your partner, your presenter is better at pitching, let them do the pitch. Remember the example I told you about the startup company that eventually won our investment, even though they messed up in the pitching competition? It was very great because their CTO was the one that was making a pitch, because the CEO, he is kind of like an introvert. He likes to manage things from behind. And he is also, his speaking ability, he's a little bit too soft. He's a little bit, he speaks softly and he speaks too fast. Whereas the CTO, on the other hand, was this very handsome and eloquent young man. So it was a great move because I could ask technical questions. So when it comes to finance data, then he would pass it back to the CEO and they can interact with each other. You can see the chemistry between the founders and you're like, okay, these people are good people for the business. So number 4, don't get defensive. This is what I always have to say. There's no ego in this. There is, you should, have self-respect, but self-respect and ego are 2 different things. Don't get defensive. Be prepared to take criticism without getting defensive, because the reason why you are there is to get criticism. Remember, people will be challenging you. Why should I invest in you? What if this problem happens? I can see this problem with your product. You are there to convince them, because all the things that they built up to that point is, why should I trust you? So you will get criticism, and you are there to get criticism because they will identify the loopholes or the dark places that you haven't investigated about your business. They will tell you where your business is a problem. They will use their years of experience to tell you the things you cannot see. They're like the back mirror of a car. So because of that reason, you are there to collect these very precious criticism. So be happy and be grateful to take them. So be prepared about it. And, even if sometimes you find that that person is dead wrong, which is something that I also have a problem with, even though I say accept criticism with grace, but, sometimes Sometimes you do feel like the person in front of you maybe completely misunderstands what you're saying or doesn't have enough background or information to give you the feedback, which is okay. People come from different backgrounds. And if they give you the wrong criticism, that's okay too. That means that they are not fit to be your investor, because when they're investing, you want an investor who shares the same language, who is on the same page with you, who understands the business and the business model. So if they are giving the wrong criticism, let them. It's not, it's not something bad. It's a good red flag if they are dead wrong. But again, be humble. Please see that sometimes they can have different opinions that you don't share, but that is also very precious feedback. Number 5, avoid investment ambiguity, which means that, again, Asian people, too polite. One of the biggest mistakes entrepreneurs make is not understanding right up front what investor is looking for in investment. I talked about it in the last slide. So don't be ambiguous. Please do understand the nature of the relationship. What is the obligation? What is the contract? Don't let your pride or your extreme humbleness get to this. You are asking for money. Be very upfront about it. How much money do you want? Why? Are you willing to compromise? Go higher, lower? What will they get in return? Don't try to beat around the bush. Go straight to the problem, because it's business. It's not charity. So common tech mistakes. Don't create too many slides and too much information. People will get overwhelmed. I have that problem. I'm sorry. I'm still improving my slides. Don't have wordy slides. I usually write, in lecture slides, I can put a lot of text in that so you can take a picture or you can go back to these slides later as a video. But when it comes to pitch decks, don't do that. Follow Guy Kawasaki's 10, 20, and 30 rule. It's a beautiful rule. And it says, have 10 slides, 20 minutes to present, and 30 point or greater. 30-point font. It has to be big font, like Apple font. Okay, too many product details or too many financial details. Those are really, too many products details. People are not interested in that yet. Maybe you have some really cool products, but keep them guessing, get them interested. Okay, Apple has a lot of other things than on the keynote slides, but they choose to show the ones that make you buy. Remember that. Sales, sales, sales. Too many financial details, also one of the problems, because not many investors are adapt in finance that much, or they care at that point. They will care at later in the conversation. And don't belittle competitors. A lot of times people will start, of course you can have a superior product, but if you belittle competitors, it's a kind of like, uncourteous. It's very impolite and people don't like it. And don't make assumptions you can't back up or don't have data, or false arrogance. Basically, don't act like a jerk. So that is the common problems that you can have. And now to end our session today, I think be ready for your cameras to take photos of the slides if you feel the need to. In the meantime, I will check the comments. Please look at the slides. These are the slides, and I will explain to you why they are necessary. Okay, so the Guy Kawasaki slides is 12 slides. I love these slides. This is one of the options of the pitch deck that I like. I really like this. It's very standard and I use it a lot. First is introduction. Who are you and why are you here? Keep it short, sweet. So, make an introduction. Don't just come in and say, this is our product and this is our ask investment. Make it personal. 2, team. Again, it's very nice to know who is behind the idea, because we'll be working with people. So show the people behind the idea and briefly describe their role briefly. Remember, slide 1 and 2 should be very short. The 3 is start with a problem. This is going to be something you learn in every psychology class, in every pitching presentation class. Start with a problem. People get motivated when, okay, if you are living in Vietnam, if you watch TV, I just recently watched TV. I don't watch TV. I don't like TV. I think nowadays I'm too busy, and I think that somehow it makes me more stupid. But I recently started watching it again because of the news for the corona situation, for the news. And, and I really, really have to say that the medicine advertisement, the Nhất Nhất company, I don't know who is behind the marketing. I know it's efficient, but you are scaring the F out of me, you know. When I live in the US, also, you know, the late night advertisement is kind of like that. It's just brainwashing, and they're always talking about the problems. And I thought, maybe one day in Vietnam we'll have these kind of advertisement. And you know, 15, 20 years later, here we are. So you can hear, you know, Nhất Nhất people, you have, you know, back pain, you have shoulder pain, you have arm pains, we have this for you. So even though it's ridiculous, but I want you to realize that the reason why the marketing team, they do that is because raising the problem, it programs in your head that you need to solve it. Humans are like that. Humans, we are animals that are programmed to be a little bit smarter than regular animals. But because of that reason, our brain is constantly looking for problems to solve. So when you start your slide, your storytelling with a problem, that's how you are trying to draw attention. Okay, so what problem are you going to solve? Present it. After you show the problem, the audience already thought to themselves, this is something strange. I don't know what, you know, I didn't know that there was a problem. And that was the reason, coming back to my story with the pitch deck with those two gentlemen that did a presentation, they presented a problem that I absolutely could not relate to, which is, you know, in Vietnam, and in other Asian countries, I believe, people have their hometown, and their hometown is very dear and close to them. And well, my hometown is Hanga Street in Hanoi. So Tet holiday for me is not that exciting, you know, to go back to my hometown because I live there now. So I never knew about that. But they told me that people from the middle part of Vietnam, those, you know, culturally speaking, they are extremely loyal to their hometown, which is true. And they have to, you know, stay away from their family and extended families for, you know, the whole year. And Tet holiday is the only time that they can go back home. And the majority of people, and the available infrastructure makes it so that you have to book trains or, you know, buses or limousines to go back to the hometown, and it's impossible during Tet holiday to buy. And he as a person who's from the middle part of Vietnam, from Nghệ An province, he said that he was so passionate about his community of people in the same hometown cannot go home. They have to wake up at 3 a.m. and go to, you know, these train stations, bus stations, these stations, and they have to queue to get the tickets. And he notices that problem. And for people like me, I was like, oh, I never knew about that it was that difficult to get a ticket to go home. But for the majority of people in that room, they could relate because they could see that, yeah, that's a problem that I have too. You know, it doesn't matter if you're rich or poor or whatever. If you're trying to go home during Tet holiday, it's very difficult to get a flight ticket, train ticket, bus ticket. And they were trying to invent a different way, a different workflow, a different booking system that will work as Uber, kind of like Uber-like, but for these kind of long distance hauls. And I thought that was beautiful when people say there is a problem that they notice. So startup founders should be the people who are understanding the problems that society faces. So you should always start with a problem that your clients are having. 4, advantages. Now, a lot of people might notice the same problem. Grab, Uber at the beginning, both of them notice the same problem with transport, with taxis. But who has the advantage? What makes your solution special? How are you different from others? So in case of Uber, they can say their advantage was they are a global company. They're too big. They're the first unicorn. They're first startup that got 1 billion investment. They got too much money. Sure, that is their advantage. But Grab, on the other hand, what they did was, they are more local. They are a Malaysian company. So they have local roots. They are familiar with spending habits and, user behavior of Southeast Asian countries. Those kind of things. And because they're smaller, so they're used to a smaller expense, smaller operation cost. So what kind of advantage you have, even though you and your competitor might still see the same problem? 5, solution. Describe how are you planning to solve the problem. So now you tell them how you are going to solve it. Remember the song from Điện Máy Xanh? That was it was a I love their Điện Máy Xanh's marketing. I love their strategy. I think the CEO of Điện Máy Xanh, Mr. Tai, is a genius. But the song is, you want to buy TV, go to Điện Máy Xanh. That kind of, it's a pitch deck. A problem, you want to buy TV, okay, I have a solution, go there. So give them the solution. Describe how are you going to solve the solution. Of course, we are looking for startups that have a more disruptive business models. So the solution should be really cool. It should be cool, but it should be also simple. The products. How does your product or service actually work? Please show some examples. So now you can show your product. See, the product is a 6 slide. It's in the middle. So a lot of people, they are so impatient. They love their product so much. They throw it in the first or 2-second slide. Don't do that. And that's why you have to make the investor interested in you halfway into the slide. Then you can show the product, the demo. Why is it superior? 7, traction. Traction means having a measurable set of customers that serves to prove a potential. And this is why I'm saying you should bootstrap in the beginning, or else it's very difficult for you to have traction. Traction is showing, how many users, how many downloads, how many people are using that app. Traction shows the investor that you are not bullshitting, that you are not lying to them, that you have real customers who can vouch for the credibility of the product and of the solution. 8, market. Now you need to know, or at least attempt to predict the size of the market. And that's your job, not investor's job. To be honest, I think that the investor will have better idea than you have about the market, but it's still your homework to identify the market and to know the market insight, to do market research and show to them. Number 9, competition. What are the alternative solutions to the problem that you are going to solve? So understand that. You are competing. You're always competing with someone. And you need to understand that a lot of times the user has a choice. If you say that you are the only one in the market that can do that, first, it's highly unlikable. Usually, you might have a great idea, but other people might have great ideas too. A competition between startup is a competition of execution. Give me 1 second. I'm sorry, I need my charger. Okay, so it's a competition of execution. So because of that reason, do not ever say that we are the only people who are capable of solving this problem. Okay, next is the business model. So here, remember that I have also had another series on teaching startups about business models. So you can check the videos in the US Embassy, the previous videos that we have about business models. So I'm assuming that you all understand what a business model is. If you don't, please go back there. The business model, the slide number 10, is going to be one of the most important thing that the investor is going to focus on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 is just a foreplay. It's just, the beginning of telling a story. Business model is going to be the heart and the soul of your pitch deck, because people are looking for ROI, return on investment. So they want to hear, how are you planning to make money? Show a schedule when you expect the revenue to pour in. They need to know when they get their cash. 11, investing. Now you can talk about what is your planned budget, your budget for operation, your budget for product development, production, your budget for marketing. How do you plan to spend the money, and how much are you looking for? To ask the investor, like I said, don't be ambiguous, be very clear about how much you're asking. And 12, then you can do a contact. After review, each slide here has a reason and to be there, because those are the things that the investor on their first meeting will be interested in, and it flows together nicely as a storytelling method. So please, if you need to take a picture of this slide, you will have this outline for you to follow when you do your pitch deck. If you have any questions, leave me a comment beneath. I will check your comments a little bit before we go to the next option for the slide deck. Oh, I have a great question. I hope you're still with us. We have Fatiha here asking us. Thank you so much for your question. Is there any difference between the social enterprises and other when it comes to the pitch? So what I mean is, when you're talking about social enterprise, okay, that is another buzzword that people are trying to define the word social enterprise. So I am assuming, okay, crap. If you can elaborate for me more, what do you mean by social enterprise? Because there are different definitions. Definition number 1, social enterprise is anything that serves society. Even EVN, who's selling us electricity, could be considered social enterprise. That is the first definition of it. The second definition is, we can think about the social enterprises are the ones under the law that doesn't take in, it's kind of like a non-profit, and you have to contribute all of your profits into the society, things like that. So Vietnam is doing kind of like a new law on incorporation, these kind of corporates. So yes, so I'm assuming you're talking about the second type, right? Okay, so yes, so for social enterprises, the same rules apply exactly. And actually, they apply even more. If you're a social enterprise, first, the people who you are going to pitch to, you have to understand the different laws and regulations. So for example, if you incorporate it under Vietnamese law as a social enterprise, a lot of times you cannot have any profit. You cannot have any cash out profit. There is no business model for making money. So in my opinion, for these kind of social enterprises, it's very difficult to pitch for people who are looking for return on investment. But of course, you can still have some returns, because when companies want to reduce their tax, so you can still pitch it to sharks. You want to reduce tax, we've got this option. So there's still an option like that. So you have to do more homework on your investors. So who are the people who have the tendency to invest in these kind of social enterprises? So first, I would think that they are actually the big for-profit. Don't think that if you are a social enterprise, you have to ask the non-profit people. Actually, the non-profit people don't have profit to give you, but you will probably pitch. You will probably have to pitch to the for-profit people, because A, they have the abundance of cash. Secondly, they can benefit from the nice image, the optics, the PR that comes from that. Thirdly, they can reduce their tax to different schemes legally. So with that, probably you are looking for people who have, the history of funding for social enterprises. That's the first thing. But also you have to be very careful. Like I said above, you also need to be careful of their conduct. You need to know how they are going to affect your operation. So if you're usually with social enterprises, a lot of times you want to keep your vision. You want to keep your way of working. You don't want other people to affect your projects on how you do business, especially if it's a moral and ethics problem. So you have to be very careful with the investors who have a tendency to intervene in a bad way with your operation. So think about it very much. Secondly, the pitch deck, still the same. What is your model? How do you sustain yourself? How much are you asking for? But in but in terms of ROI, you can talk about the other kind of returns. If you're to invest in that, then you can get, selfish returns, but you can also get, monetary return, but you can also get all the other returns. What's going to happen to, the community? How does it contribute to the society as a whole? Why? Basically, it's all about the why. Remember, it's still selling, and remember that you still have a chance to get that. So do a very good research on your audience and your investor and follow the same rules. Anyways, I'm sorry, but it's I would love to have these documents, but again, to be honest, maybe I'm not doing a good job, but the interaction, the storytelling between us over the internet like this is the reason why we have lectures. We don't send out documents because of that reason, because this is a chance for us to come together as society in isolation times where we can spread the love for free, education for free, thanks to the American Center. And these videos are online. They are still here, even though it's through live streaming, but please follow us, please spread the love. If you find that it's gonna be good for somebody else, spread the love, share it. And you can always go back to the video section under Facebook tabs of American Center in the US Embassy in Hanoi, and you can still go back to the videos to see the documents, okay? I'm very sorry that we cannot do because each of our lecture are also, we have to prepare our own slides, lectures. We have some of us have license over them. So because this is also a social project where the American Center provides free education and free, university courses, material for the Vietnamese people for free. Of course, after isolation, I hope to see you guys in person in the American Center where we can have, a better human-to-human interaction. But for now, please interact, feel free to comment, to talk, and we'll have a great shout out. Okay, so now we'll go to the second storytelling deck flow. This is a different deck flow that you can follow, this second template. So this is the one that I also like very much. It's one of my favorites. So the first one is Guy Kawasaki. You will meet it a lot. The previous one that I talked about. The second one is the one that I use also a lot. So this is the reason why. First, start with an elevator pitch. So we talk about elevator pitch for people who want to know what elevator pitch is. You can Google it, and hopefully you can find a post on my website, nikkingwin.vn, where I have a really long article about explaining what is an elevator pitch. A short example is just elevator pitch is a pitch deck that is so condensed, so short, so fast, so efficient, and super fast, about 30 seconds, that if you are in an elevator with a stranger and they ask, what do? Then you can explain to them in 30 seconds during that elevator ride. Basically, that's what it means. So elevator pitch is a really short pitch, but it has to be really good. That's why it's so difficult to write one. So start with an elevator pitch. This is how you capture the first 30 seconds of the attention of the investor or whoever you're presenting to. Second, all the numbers. Throw the numbers in the face of the investor. This is a storytelling, but it's a kind, you can see that it's a very sales oriented pitch deck where you throw in the face of the investor the momentum, traction, expertise, your key numbers. Just throw it in their face. They're smart. They can read the numbers and like, oh my God, I like that. You want to show them that, oh, we are so good. We already have traction. Our profitability is high. Our ROI is high. Look how great we are. Through numbers. And of course, investors, they're impatient, they're smart, they work with numbers a lot. This will kind of activate their brain for a really good start. But remember that you also have to think about the investor side, because a lot of times what you consider impressive might not be so impressive in the eyes of an investor. So for example, you say the profit every year is like 2 billion Vietnamese đồng. If you're a small company, you think that that is a very good profit. But if you're an investor, you're like, eh. But again, if you say that, ROI, I mean the net profit margin is about 35%, then the investor will be like, oh my God, what's that? The banking system only give us a 6% in interest. Other businesses 5, 10, or maybe 15% in interest after tax is usually the margin. So if you can provide a margin of 35%, then that is going to be something that the investors like, wait, what are they selling? So that's how you capture the attention. 3, after that, market opportunity. Define market size and your customer base. Now you talk about who you are trying to sell to. Does it align with the investor? Does the investor feel like that those are the same people that they're trying to capture? 4, problem and current solutions. So again, throw them the problems and tell them the current solution. What need do you fill? And other solutions, talk about that. So for example, in my opinion, Zoom, why Zoom became such a popular software, the stock went off the roofs after the corona situation was because nobody realized that we have such a big problem with human and human interaction. Of course, before, it would be difficult, Anyways, I have a question. Where are you guys? I have a question for we have, a couple dozens of people. We have a couple of dozen of people here online. So, where are you? Tell me. Are you in Hanoi? Are you in Ho Chi Minh City? Are you in Cần Thơ? I don't know. Where are you? I'm very curious. So, if you're still online, where are you? Chi, we have Chi, we have Ha online, we have Mr. Huing, I think. We've got Long online. Where are you? Out of curiosity. Okay, we've got somebody from Hanoi. We have Mỹ Anh Vũ. Yeah, where are you? So I really want to know your geography, because the reason is, before we still have the same problem. If I'm in Chicago, or I'm in Hanoi, or I'm in Beijing or Singapore, and you guys are in Hanoi, Ho Chi Minh City, or Da Nang, it's gonna still be different for us to communicate, to have these kind of online mass courses, mass classes. But at that time, we didn't think that was such a big problem, right? At that time, the U.S. Embassy was still open. Oh, we've got a lot of people from Hanoi. Good to see you, Hanoians. So we've got a lot of people and coming in, and we didn't notice the problem when it comes to online courses. And then the corona situation happens, and suddenly companies and education institutions and all of these places, we have a problem with how to communicate with each other. And suddenly the problem became so serious with companies, with schools, that we have to find current solution. And so what need are we going to fill in? Zoom was filling in the need for people to maintain communication from remote. And other solution was what? Skype. Remember, I mean, when I was young, I don't know if you guys was, I think when you guys were young, maybe you know Skype. If you're old like me, you probably know Skype. And at that time, we have what options? We have Yahoo Messenger. Yahoo died. That's how I know that I'm old. We have Yahoo Messenger. The first video chat with my family or with my friends in Europe, at that time, we have to have a date at that time. And we would have a beer together, 20 years ago. Over Yahoo Messenger with my brother, who was at the time in Poland, and I was in Chicago at the time. And we were drinking, we had a beer date on Yahoo Messenger. And then Yahoo died at that time, and of course we moved to Skype. With Skype, we suddenly, we have better calls, but still at the same time, we spend most of the time like, can you hear me? Hello, hello, hello. And now I tried Skype the other day, and Skype, I think, was bought by Microsoft. So I also remember reading somewhere that they have stopped investing in Skype, which is very sad, but it was our go-to communication tool. Nowadays, we have Zoom here, and after 2 decades, I'm sitting here and I realize that, the solution, the problem that we have before has always been about distance and remote communication. But each company was successful in a certain decade. The only thing is there's always a newcomer who is trying to innovate it more, who's trying to make it better. And at this moment, we are here on Zoom because we can live stream it. So that is the current solution. And other solutions, Skype, too old, not reliable, maybe difficult to broadcast on Facebook. We have Yahoo Messenger. Maybe you have, nowadays we have, which is dead. Maybe, Facebook live streaming could be one of the options, but, compare for me, what would you like to have? So 5, product or service. Then now we will talk about the product. See, the feature where you can live stream on different platforms, when you can have, meetings with great quality of sound and image and yada, yada, yada. So what is your product, service, your solution? Number 6, again, business model. But remember, when we talk about business model, key revenue stream. A lot of people talk about how smart the business model is, and it could be, your business model could be genius, but revenue streams, where does the money come from? How does it pour in? What kind of volume, what kind of frequency? That is going to be very important in your key business model, key expense and key revenue. 7, market approach and strategy. I love this one. And I love it. The reason why the Guy Kawasaki one, the 12 slides, doesn't have it, and I'm okay with that, is because a lot of startups, they don't know what is their market approach. They know their product is good, they know they need the money, but they also need help with finding the market approach. Market approach is the most difficult when it comes to the business model, because when you talk about the business model, you're talking about having attraction already. But if you have none traction, how do you get started? How do you make your first customer? How are you going to have the second, the third, and the fourth? That's market approach and strategy. And it's super difficult. And before, that was my main business. I work in market penetration strategy. So we always have to find a way how to get inside the market, how to find the first customer base. And this is super important. So if you feel like you already, you are not so prepared with this slide, use the 12 slide options above. But if you can craft this slide, then you will get so much investment. This slide is going to be one of the most important slides that investors look at. When they have to separate the mediocre startup and the really good ones, if you have the number 7 slide, you will win the investment. Number 8, now you talk about the team. They trust you and they want to see the faces behind all of these brains, all of this strategy. Then you can show the team and key stakeholders, including both investors and advisors. So yes, having advisors on the team is very important. If you already have really good advisors, so for example, if I'm an investor and I see, and I'm quite familiar with people working in the startup business, venture capitalists and mentors, mentees, and even government officials who work as mentors. So if I see a friend of mine on the board of advisor of your startup, then I will have the reason to think, oh, so okay, it's more validating for this startup, because I can call that person. I can say, oh, are you mentoring, this startup? Are they good? What's their problem? Yada, yada, yada. But at the same time, I can also feel like somebody else is already helping me with choosing the startup. They're already validating you. They're already selecting you. And that gives a lot of weight. But again, if your advisor is not so has a bad reputation, then it could also harm you. But that's not very common. So number 9, now you talk about competition. And of course, number 10, financials and investments. So again, with this one, it's also one of the tricky slides. A lot of startup founders are not good at finances. Not everybody's equipped with, cash flow projection and monitoring and all of those things, okay? So please have your financial investment, your ask for funding, your basic use of fund. How much are you asking for? What is your use? What's your expenses? At least pass this test and have those 10 slides ready. So if you have those kind of things, Before that, let me get distracted by the comment section very much. Hai Long from Hanoi. We have Johnny Nguyen from Hanoi. We have Ha also from Hanoi. We have Mr. Zung from both Hanoi and Ho Chi Minh City. Yeah, a lot of Hanoians. Good to see you. Anyways, so when somebody's asking us, do you need vaccination to go to the US? That is a good question to ask the US Embassy Consulate. We are in education. Again, the opening of the embassy in the US is based on the government's rules, Vietnamese government's rules. So it's better to wait on the website and on the notice from the official Facebook of the US Embassy. Anyways, so coming back to our slides and ending our lecture today, excuse me. Okay. Let me run through. I know we are out of time, but I have 2 more slides. So just let me run through really quickly. So these are the slides. I will also review them in the next session. So please have your questions ready in the next session and we can talk in details. The most common slides, so don't even underestimate the number of slides there are. I keep saying 10 to 15, but selecting the best, the hottest, the most important slides is very difficult because you already only have 10, 15, or maximum 20 slides, and that is for your pitch deck. But your pitch deck has different kind of options. When you are meeting them for the first time, 15 slides. The second time, they're asking for more things, financials, or maybe 20 slides. Or the third meeting, they're asking you more deeper questions and more intimate questions, more confidential data. Then you need a different slide. You need to add on more and more slides. So don't expect that you only use one pitch deck, okay? So the most common slides you can have here as a selection is the cover slide, easy. Elevator pitch, talk about it. Market problem and current solution, I talk about it. Market opportunity, define market, target customer, target market size, we talk about it. So your solution, also yada yada. Team is impressive. Of course, we recommend that you have a team photo there, but again, you know, if your team is really impressive, put it in. If it's not so impressive, you can opt out. 6 board of members and advisors, the same rules apply. Traction and awards. Don't put in some bullshit award. If you have really good traction and awards, put it in. If it's not impressive and if you have to buy some prize, don't. Market fit and competition, love it. Market fit is super important slide. Competitive advantage is about what advantage do you have that can compete with other people that are trying to solve the same problem in the market. Revenue model, the key revenue streams and business model, one of the most important slides. Expense burn model, we haven't talked about this in the slides above. As I said, the financial is a little bit difficult. You can have your own slide about expense model. How much money are you trying to burn? That's why it's called a burn model. Your key expense, your time, effort, and your strategy. Financial projection, again, if you don't know how to do it, ask a friend how to help you to make a financial modeling, financial projection Excel sheet, and put that table on there. But you have to understand your financial situation. Learn basic of finance, because if you want to be a CEO of a company, you need to know finance. 13, this is very, very optional and it's very dangerous slide. Exit strategy. Are you planning to do IPO? Are you planning to be the CEO of your company forever? What is your exit strategy? I usually don't recommend people put that in, because a lot of times your expectation today and when you are successful or failing will be completely different. But a lot of venture capitals will ask you, what exactly are you looking for? Are you looking to hop like, you know, Elon Musk? Before he created Tesla and SpaceX, he was on the founder list of other startups, and he's just hopping from one startup to another one. He's like a professional founder, I think, in some regards, and so he exits a lot. But yeah, if you are not sure, don't put it in. 14, the ask, how much are you asking? And 15 is closing slides, Q&A, and remember to have your contacts there. A lot of people, it's very simple, a lot of people forget it. If there's no contact page, how are they going to call you and give you money? Okay, please take a photo of these slides, because you can have 3 types of decks, as I show you in the green box over there. You can have 5 slide decks, so you can do a combination of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 5, 19, 12, 14 slides, so mix and match. Or you can do a 10 slide deck, so you can do everything except for the ones that I said optional. Or you can do a 15 to 30 slide deck, which is slide from 1 to 15, and then put whatever the investor is asking. Put your story in, put something that is relevant to your business. And that is the most common ones. Let's say this for the next session, for the 13th for the third session. This is the other slide decks that we can put in as additional slides to the pitch deck. So as you can see, actually, if you are a startup founder, life is already hard enough. You're making a startup, you're asking for money. Life is hard as an entrepreneur. But remember that having a pitch deck is two things: soft part, hard part. Soft part, soft skill. How do you tell your story? Do you know your business? Do you have a good business model? Technical part, hard part, is how to craft the pitch deck, how to understand the funding rounds, how to present your ideas, and how to put the information on there. And we'll have a lot of jargons. We'll talk about lifetime value of customer. We'll talk about pipeline of potential customers and cash runway and these kind of weird words. So please come back next week, same time, and we'll discuss more about startup know-hows, how to do a pitch deck in our series for startup training with 4 sessions in crafting the perfect pitch. So with that, I'll have to say goodbye to you. Stay safe, and hopefully for people in Hanoi and Ho Chi Minh City, we can go out soon. Stay safe. Goodbye.